Fight fans worldwide, whoever you are and wherever you are, thank you for watching. My name is HB, alongside my brother in boxing, Breezy, and this is The Hard-Hitting Truth. This is a podcast by boxers to give you an unfiltered, unbiased look at the sweet science we love so much. Joining us on the show, a very special guest, Jason from Podcast or Die Trying. He's here to produce this episode. We're also joined by a few of the usual suspects, Adonis, a young sports broadcaster in the making, and Devin, the hot take specialist, who is also an amateur boxer and personal trainer. On this episode, we're going to talk about the lightweight world championship title fight between Teofimo Lopez and George Kambosos Jr. It went down on DAZN November 27th in New York City. But before we go any further, please, if you haven't already, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at thht.boxing. Also, while you're listening, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. Leave some feedback for us in the comments. Most importantly, share this content and tell your friends to tell their friends about the hard-hitting truth. Breezy, my brother.
Yes,
go
sir.
ahead and ring that opening bell, please.
All right. Ding, ding.
All right, before we begin and start talking boxing, I got to give a quick shout out to Fifth Element. Thank you, sir, for this beat. Anybody out there that needs any production, any type of beats, please look him up on Instagram. You can find him at THE5WONDERFUL at the 5 Wonderful. Thank you, Fifth Element. We appreciate you. Also, want to give a long overdue shout out to Rock Customs. She did our logo. You can find her at ROCCUSTOMS at Rock Customs. They're both on Instagram. If you need these services, please hit them up. They're out of the Chicagoland area. You know, this is a podcast that's, you know, from Chicago. So got to support our own people.
What up, Tiff?
Also, before we get started and talk some more boxing, I got to go ahead and pat myself on the back. I told you guys when we were doing the Canelo Plant episode, there was going to be a major upset in the month of November. And now we're going to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Breezy, my brother, you ready to talk about this fight?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
All right. Let's break it down. What happened? Tell us what went wrong for Teofimo Lopez and what went right for George Kambosos Jr.
Well, I'm gonna talk about what went right for Kambosos first, because he earned it the old-fashioned way. He went in there and just used his fists. But he came in the fight with a great game plan. He didn't there was no conceding, no concession in him. He refused to be outworked. You know, Teo was the bigger, stronger guy. You know, you might think he wanted to stay on the outside, use a jab and not exchange, but he didn't let Teofimo take the play away from him. So anytime Teo had any success, he was right back there, and that swayed the judges, and it also let Teofimo know that he ain't going anywhere. You know, it stopped his momentum every time. He didn't want to. Also, he didn't get too tough. You know, this is part of his game plan. Sometimes, like I think there were moments, like for example, when Caleb Plant got too tough against Canelo. You know, staying on the inside a little too long. You can have an exchange, but know your strengths and know your opponent's strengths. Don't get in there thinking you're going to show everybody your heart and start taking punishment. Get you a couple shots off, move out the way. And he did that. And he also had to have a great will and chin. You know,
yeah,
he faced some adversity. He went down. He was hurt, stunned a couple of times. He wouldn't let that deter him. He had an excellent beard, you know, and it got tested. And when he tested it, he passed the test. So that's what Kambosos did to secure that victory for himself. Now, on the other hand, Teofimo, what went wrong for him? He didn't have a game plan. Well, I won't say that. He had a game plan, but the plan was for the fight to be over in the first round. And I don't think he planned for after that, you know. So,
yeah.
Obviously, he didn't stop him in the first round. So you got to keep on fighting. And I think that was kind of disrespectful to just. It seemed like it hadn't like crossed their mind or his mind that you might not stop him in the first round. What then? It just seemed like he was totally unprepared for that situation. I mean, you can call it confidence in yourself or disrespect or just overlooking him or whatever. So another thing that went wrong for Teofimo was his corner. He didn't get a lot of direction from his father. After the first round, so he gets dropped in the first round at the end of the round. So the bell rang. He went back to the corner, and his first thing his dad said was what you expected. Look, you got to take your time. And he was like, yeah, take your time, because he seemed to be rushing. The very next thing he said, he's like, the right hand is there. And then he asked him, what are you doing? Knock him out already.
Yeah.
Like, finish him off, bro. Like, okay.
You know what? Even Chris Mannix gave some pushback on the broadcast. He said that's kind of conflicting advice. You can't tell him to take his time and then also say finish him already. So even Chris Mannix gave some pushback as soon as he said it.
So yeah, that was a contradiction in one sentence, so he didn't get a lot of assistance from his corner, and it's difficult to win like that, especially in a competitive fight. So that's what went wrong for Teofimo. Maybe he can change it and do things differently, but this happened how it happened. We got to call it like we saw it.
Yeah, true. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Devin, the hot take specialist, next. I said that Devin is an amateur boxer and personal trainer. I also forgot to mention that he is also a part-time photographer, and one of his favorite places to shoot is in New York. He's in New York fairly often. And so Teofimo Lopez is from New York. So I'm going to let Devin go ahead and stick his 2 cents, 5 cents, 10 cents, whole dollar, whatever you got, Devin. Tell us how you feel. What did you think?
First of all, Teofimo Lopez is from New York when it's convenient. So
yeah, tell us what went right for Kambosos and what went wrong for Lopez.
Man, I hate when upsets like this happen, because it's far too often the narrative becomes what did the favorite do wrong. So too much of it is after the fight, like, oh my God, how did this person blow it? It's always about the guy who lost, and not enough credit is put and given to the champion, which in this case is George Kambosos. My man had a child. His grandfather passed away, and all through that, he never stopped training. He had COVID scares. I found this out a week after, a couple of days after the fight. I was reading. He had a few COVID scares in his family that were really serious. And for our viewers that don't know, in Australia, they have some of the most strict COVID policies in the world when it comes to, being quarantined, being locked down. But George Kambosos just kept training. To me, the number one thing, and it's 3 things I like to mention. He had effective pressure. He never stayed in the pocket too long for Teofimo to fire off of him. His toughness alone shows you that he was supposed to be in that fight, and he belongs with those top names of the lightweight division.
Absolutely.
Another big thing for me, which I felt was the most important attribute that he carried into that fight, was he didn't smother his punches when he was being mobile. A lot of guys, they'll just fire off punches in bunches, and then they'll just step back and they'll just stay there. Here and there they'll slip. He would throw clean, crisp punches, slip, roll out, and reset and do it all over again. Now, to segue into what was wrong with Teofimo, he clearly underestimated this guy. He had a horrible game plan coming in. To piggyback off of what Breezy said, if your game plan is to knock a guy out, you better have power like Mike Tyson. You better have power like Deontay Wilder, because if we've known that that's what you do to people, then it's no problem for us to say, okay, this fight is going to be quick. It's going to be over quick, excuse me. But that wasn't the case. So, and to be honest, he did find a rhythm, Teofimo. but it was too little, too late. By that time, George was weathering the storm. He was picking up on a lot of his shots. Yeah, he did stun George a little bit, and yeah, obviously he knocked him down. But when you see both of them hit the floor, one seemed more of like a flash knockdown, and the other one seemed like, oh yeah, you weren't expecting that, and that hurt, and you need to gather yourself. So, and the biggest thing, man, was bad coaching. There's no political correct way to say it. Teofimo's father is not the right person to be in there. Like, the advice round after round after round after round that his father was giving him, he might as well have been listening to somebody from the crowd. He'd had a better chance of winning. I mean, come on. It was just mindless rambling. Come on, fam. Come on.
Yeah.
Ladies
and gentlemen, time and time again, Devin shows you guys why I call him the hot take specialist. Adonis, what do you think? What went right for Kambosos and what went wrong for Lopez?
Honestly, in fights like this, sometimes you see it's like one thing from the underdog that really stands out. In this fight, George Kambosos, he did pretty much everything right. He might not have been like the best at one thing, but he's damn good at everything. He used his length really well in spots. You saw him tripling up on that jab, turning the hook over in the front. Man, that's some that's some next level stuff that you're seeing, especially at that championship level, to be just peppering a guy like that, of somebody of Teofimo Lopez's caliber. That was really impressive. He stayed off the ropes when he needed to, didn't let Teofimo get any free exchanges, got in close and exchanged. He made sure Teofimo never looked like he was easily winning the fight. And he never was. That fight was competitive all the way throughout. And in the spots that it was going in George Kambosos' favor. For Teofimo Lopez, I mean, it looked amateurish when he first came out. After he didn't get the knockout early, I mean, that's not how championship level fighters should be fighting. We can't be looking at this and going, if you tell any single champion, hey, you should go out and fight like that, unless you're, say, like Deontay Wilder, and that's at the heavyweight division, you just can't be giving good advice. The coaching was absolutely atrocious.
Whack.
We're going to be going out and celebrating tonight. I don't know how that's boxing advice, It's really just, like Devin said, it was mindless rambling. And I think, the dads of boxers in the corner have not had the best month. But, compared to somebody like Kenny Porter, at least he's giving boxing advice. You know what I mean? At least he's in there. He knows what he's talking about. You can apply what he's saying. Just go out there and knock him out. Dude, I hear, like, people, like, on the couches saying that to the TV. Like, why he ain't knocking him out yet? You know what I mean? It's that level of coaching. And, hey, despite that, Teofimo still almost knocked him out. So that's just, like, a testament to Teofimo's raw talent, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Very true.
He showed incredible power, and George Kambosos showed an iron will. Realistically, and I think when it really comes down to it, Teofimo still had a shot in this fight. He let those last two rounds kind of slip away from him. After hurting Kambosos in the 9th, dropping him in the 10th, he took the 11th round off. And he got the 12th round on one of the judges' scorecards. But if he had won those 2 rounds decisively after hurting Kambosos, I got the scorecards right here. It would have ended up a draw. 1 Teofimo Lopez's way, 1 George Kambosos' way, and 1 tied. So it wasn't like he was ever out of this fight. He just made a consistent amount of bad decisions all the way throughout, and that's why he lost the fight.
Yeah, I agree with you also. All of you guys made really great points. One thing I would like to do is go ahead and give a shout out to Jessica Mccaskill. She's also from Chicago, and she is the undisputed welterweight champion of the world. She was on the broadcast, and she said after the 7th round that, Teofimo Lopez made an amateur move by going out there and trying to finish George Kambosos Jr. in the 1st round. The problem for Lopez is when he didn't do that, he spent so much energy trying to do that, and then he got hit with that big shot, and it almost seemed like he never recovered. While it's great to get a knockout, you always have to set it up. You always have to set it up, especially at this level. This is, George Kambosos Jr. was the mandatory opponent, and he's the mandatory opponent for a reason. 19-0. I don't know who needs to hear this, but Australian guys are tough and they love boxing. You know, I've met a ton of Australian people in my life, and they love boxing. You know, boxing is big in Australia. They just don't have a lot of big time boxers up until now. Um, aside from Teofimo Lopez going out there and trying to finish him in the first round and kind of depleting a lot of his energy, he didn't make a lot of adjustments. And I agree with you guys. That probably comes from his corner. You know, there were things that he could have done, and even though he didn't he didn't make any adjustments or corrections, he was still pretty close in this fight. He got the knockdown in the 10th round. And honestly, when he got that knockdown, I thought that he could have finished him, but it seemed like he didn't have enough gas left in the tank to do so. And that, again, goes back to what everybody was saying about the first round. When I was watching the first round live, I saw Teofimo putting on a lot of pressure. And I said to myself, man, you better save some of that, because, it just looked like Kambosos was just waiting for his moment. And so for Kambosos, what went right was that big overhand right in the first round that dropped Teofimo Lopez with about 20 seconds left on the clock. If he did not score that overhand right and knock Lopez down, he may not have won this fight. So because he was losing the first round, but because he dropped him, that should make it a 10-8 round for George Kambosos Jr. So that was a big moment for him. So that was the first thing he did right. I also have to agree with Devin, him sticking to his training through all the adversity that went down during this camp, from when the fight was first announced, all the postponements, all the turmoil that was going on in both boxers' lives. It seemed like George Kambosos fed off of it. And unfortunately, the turmoil maybe drained and ate away at Teofimo Lopez. Another thing that George Kambosos Jr. did right was he managed the distance very, very well. Mm-hmm. He didn't smother his punches, just like Devin said, and he didn't stay on the outside. He stayed right in the pocket. He stayed at a good distance, which was suitable for him. And the one thing that Teofimo Lopez's father did say that I thought was great advice was go to him and put more pressure on him. And if he could have done that, he may have eked out the victory, even though he got dropped early on in the fight. Unfortunately, again, I think that him depleting a lot of his energy and then getting caught with that big overhand right that may have casted some doubt in the back of his mind, kind of, it cost him big in the first round. So, another thing I got to say about George Kambosos Jr. is it seems like all the years sparring with Manny Pacquiao really paid off. So let's move on to the next segment, and I got to ask you guys this: we're almost at the end of this year for boxing, so we've seen a lot of fights, a lot of great fights too. Was this the biggest upset of the year? And I'll turn it over to Adonis first. What do you think?
Sorry, one more time.
Was this fight and this victory for George Kambosos Jr. over Teofimo Lopez, was this the biggest upset of the year? And just for reference, I want to go ahead and tell our viewers that going into this fight, according to CBS Sports, George Kambosos was a plus 650 underdog. So, what do you think, Adonis? Was this the biggest upset of the year, or do you think there was another fight out there that kind of overshadowed it?
When people are picking fights, you can say that you're always going to be with the underdog, but it's not really until you put your money where your mouth is that it really counts. And when you look at the betting odds, it's not even really close, to be honest with you. Look at Usyk plus 220, Valdez plus 270, Ugas plus 280. Kambosos is a light year away from that betting odds wise, and that's how you can really tell who people actually believe in and their chances to win. I don't really think it's all that close, especially when you look at the way it happened. Everybody was writing this guy off. I mean, before the fight, people were debating on if it was going to go 7, 10. People didn't even think it was going to go to a decision. That's how confident they were in Teofimo Lopez. And why wouldn't they be? It's a young guy who just beat, at the time, a top 3 pound-for-pound fighter in the entire world. And he did it, impressively. Sure, Lomachenko had his issues, and we all know that now. But when it happened, he kind of shook up the world a little bit. So it's kind of crazy to see somebody go from the biggest upset of last year to being on the other side of the upset of this year. And when you look
Life
at
comes
Usyk
at you fast.
yeah, and when you look at like Usyk versus Joshua, we know Anthony Joshua's had. Sorry, Devin. I'm sorry, Devin. He's had his moments. You look at the last Manny Pacquiao was.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know why Devin is reacting, it is because he is a huge Anthony Joshua fan.
I don't know why
I'm sorry.
bringing up old stuff.
I'm sorry, Adonis. Back to you. Back to you, Adonis.
But yeah, when you look at that, like Burchell a little bit older, Manny Pacquiao a little bit older, Kambosos' win over Teofimo Lopez. I mean, you got a quality guy in the prime of his career who just is coming off the biggest win in the sport in a while, to be honest with you. So I don't really think it's all that debatable that this was the biggest upset of the year.
Yeah, facts.
I agree.
What about you, Jason? What do you think?
I just, I was reluctant to even comment about this fight because I had to catch it in spurts. Like I saw the whole fight, but not in its entirety. I didn't get to watch it all the way through, like you would like to watch a fight so you could see all the momentum, but I was able to catch most of it.
Unfortunately, you were in the wrong city that weekend.
Yeah, I was in Vegas. It was tough. Yeah. If the fight was in Vegas, I would have been in the building for sure. Like out of all fights that they don't have in Vegas, that one. And I definitely would have been in the building if they would have had that fight in Vegas. But, moving right along, in the beginning when I was watching the fight, because I came in like around the third round, and I just kept noticing how sharp Kambosos looked. Like his countering was it was crazy. It was like almost flashing back to all those months ago when we watched Teofimo shake up the world with his amazing countering on Lomachenko in the first 6 rounds of that fight. That most of us were saying, damn, Lomachenko giving him the fight? But he really just took it. He countered like some of the best countering I've seen. Fast forward to his next fight with Kambosos, the roles reverse. It's like Kambosos' countering was just on point. It was sharp, and it had good, it had some sting on it. Like he was really, good power punches, everything. He just looked so crisp. His game plan looked much better. He applied pressure when he was supposed to, got out when he was supposed to. He wasn't doing the Devin Haney thing where Devin Haney's acting like he got a point to prove with his last fight, where he wants to stay in and prove he has a chin. I don't know why, but whatever the case may be, to prove that he's a brawler or a boxer or he has a chin. Kambosos didn't do none of that. He got in, got out, took care of business. Whatever the case may be, he took his bumps and bruises because, let's be honest, Lopez is a strong guy, a very talented guy.
Good puncher.
And was going for the knockout the whole time.
Yeah.
Was very aggressive. Every round that I seen, he was so aggressive. So maybe he gassed out. But, it's 2 points I want to make. The counter punching by Kambosos was impressive. And the second point is, this goes into what I was talking about the other day. This is why I don't like when champions take these fights. Kambosos is not a champion. He was an up-and-coming fighter. He did prove that he belongs to be in that elite club of lightweights. But if Teo and his promotion and his management team would have just went for the big fight, maybe he would have prepared better. Maybe things would have worked out a lot better if there were more belts on the line. If it wasn't just Teo's belt, maybe he came in cocky. I don't know what it is. But this whole idea that these boxers come in and they just make whatever fights that they can, make without even seeming to go for the big fish. When you have the Lomachenko rematch hanging out there, which I don't blame him not taking that. But you also have Devin Haney and the Tank fight that you could have made with your 3 years off with the pandemic and this how long did we wait for Teo to get back in the ring? His absence was huge. He could have literally
a little bit over a year.
He could have literally fought anybody.
Lomachenko in October of 2020.
Right. And the Kambosos fight was supposed to happen in August, correct?
Originally, it was supposed to happen in June.
Exactly. So He had plenty of time to say, all right, well, it didn't happen. It faded through to aim his. This is what I'm saying. It's the same thing, same argument that I made about us wanting to see the Anthony Joshua Wilder fight. And look what happens. We never got it. They both suffered 2 L's. T.O. was on the same track. He's on the same track. He lost his belts. Maybe he'll get a rematch. Maybe he'll get to go back at it. But the way boxing is going right now, is he? Is he really?
Well,
look how many killers we got in this fight.
Wait a minute. This boy he came into that fight with the perfect storm. He had Bob Arum as his promoter. He had his clown father that in his corner, and then he came in there cocky. First of all, you took a year off. I don't want to hear listen. It was a great point, excellent the way you structured it, but I don't want to hear no excuses. True champions show up when it's time to show up, whether it be from around the street or it be another fellow champion. That guy was his mandatory. He's supposed to show up and do exactly what the betting, what the sports book said in Vegas. What was it again, Adonis? It was plus what?
Plus 650, man.
Plus 650. He was not supposed to make that many people rich on that night.
That's almost disrespectful
in him.
And let me go ahead and give you some pushback also, Jason, because I gotta disagree respectfully.
Go ahead.
Kambosos is a top 10 opponent, even without him being the mandatory, which he earned. Even without that being there, he's a great fighter. He deserved that fight. So I didn't really have any problems with this fight being made. I got to agree with Devin. I just think, unfortunately, this was supposed to be a big coming out party for Teofimo Lopez in New York, where he's from. After making, after scoring one of the biggest victories in his career. And, sometimes, there's a lot of pressure on the champion to go out there and perform and do what you're supposed to do in championship form. Unfortunately,
I agree, but there was no pressure. There was no pressure in this situation, and I think that was the problem.
Well, let's recap this for the listeners also. So the fight was supposed to originally be in June, and then there was a postponement because of COVID, and then there were problems with promotional companies. Teofimo Lopez versus Kambosos was going to go down on Triller or the Fight app or both. I'm not sure how it works. They couldn't do it. They scheduled it once, had to push it back, scheduled it again, and they just really, unfortunately for both fighters, they didn't really know what they were doing with promoting the fight, and they kind of botched it. So it went to a purse bid. Matchroom picked it up and put it on DAZN, and credit to Matchroom and DAZN because they did a great job picking the fight up. And once they picked it up, they put it out, and it was a great broadcast, and it was a great event. So credit to them for doing it right, because once they picked it up, there weren't any more postponements. And again, I think the difference is through all those problems professionally and whatever problems they had personally, because we already talked about Kambosos had lost his grandfather, had a child that was born, had some COVID scares with some loved ones. Teofimo Lopez said that he had a lot of financial problems. Kambosos weathered the storm, similar to the way Buster Douglas did when he fought Mike Tyson after losing his mother. And Teofimo Lopez did not.
Why would you go there?
Well,
I think that's relevant.
There are some parallels.
It's definitely relevant. Listen, champions show up. Champions show up no matter what. That's exactly why you see it throughout boxing history. When guys don't show up, it's just like it's no different from Lennox when he fought Hasim Rahman that first time.
Yeah,
he overlooked him, and Emmanuel Stewart kept telling him, "Man, do not go out there thinking that this guy is just some bum. He can rock, man." And he put him on his,
Yeah, he laid him out.
Yeah.
And then the next fight, Lennox did not come in there messing around.
No, he didn't play no
like
games.
A champion. That's what champions truly do. And I'm telling you right now, that amount of time that he took off, instead of milking that victory over Lomachenko, he should have been continuing to train, continuing to grind. I'm ready whenever, whoever wants to show up. It's just like, great boxing trainers always say, boxing is not something that you get ready for. A boxing match, you should never be getting ready for a match when your training camp comes around. You should be training all year round. What the saying, how to saying go, fellas? Stay ready so you
Stay
don't have to
ready.
get ready.
So you don't have to be.
Yeah.
That comes from
ready.
boxing. He has to be ready. Now he's in a bad predicament, in my opinion, because if a Vasily goes out and beats the brakes off of Richard Comey, he's gonna be asking for that rematch, and the world is gonna be asking for that rematch. And I personally think Lomachenko will win because in that fight with Teofimo Lopez, he just went in there way too slow. He tried to collect as much data as he can, and then similar to Teofimo against Kambosos, he got into rhythm late. Lomachenko don't. I'm telling you, I would love to see the odds on that fight. And now you have to worry about where's Teofimo at mentally, where's he at emotionally with his relationship with his father.
Yeah,
I agree. I just
boxers got to stay ready.
I think that it serves the purpose of showing boxers, like we discussed many times, about protecting that O and taking these lesser fights, that these guys are not playing with you. When you're holding all the belts and you holding all the cards and you're in their way to being that meal ticket, to being that next up and coming guy and writing your own ticket, they're going to come at you and they're going to give it their all and they're going to prepare. And this is it. This is what just happened. We just watched it. 650, that's downright disrespectful. Plus 650. That means he has no chance to win. I haven't seen too many odds that was that bad in championship fights since like maybe the Canelo, what was his name?
Plant.
No, not Canelo Plant. Uridium or
Yildirim.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was like plus 900. So, and that's not far off. Plus 650.
Right.
So that was just flat out disrespectful because everybody knew Canelo was going to flatten that guy. But, you know, I mean, God bless Kambosos and taking advantage of his opportunity, because I did not have him winning that fight. And to be honest, it's definitely the biggest upset to me because I'm a big Teo fan. I had Teo clearing that whole division out. Even Tank.
That's the
I'm
issue.
rooting for Tank, but I thought he could beat Tank. I thought that he can out game plan Tank. I thought he could fight better than Tank and box better than Tank and be able to outbox Tank in a ring. And after watching this fight,
well, Jason, you're going to have to definitely recalibrate.
No.
Breezy.
It's a wrap.
Breezy,
Like,
same question. Let me go ahead and get Breezy's take. Breezy, what did you think? Did you think this was the biggest upset of the year?
Not only do I think it's the biggest upset of the year, but it could be the biggest upset in recent years. At least dating back, like the next most significant upset that I can think of on that level would be Ruiz versus Joshua.
I knew he was going to do it. I knew it.
Like, you know what, Devin? Don't worry. When I put my two
I didn't hear one person before that fight, not a single person say they had Ruiz. And then after the fight, a few of them showed, I knew Ruiz. Nah, okay, whatever. And the same thing with this fight. Like, I didn't hear one person before the fight happened say. Everybody was like, "Yo, hey, he might be looking over at Kambosos," but they was like, "Yeah, he's still gonna get him." And Breezy, I didn't hear after the fight. I heard exactly.
Breezy, you heard me say it on our recording that between Lopez Kambosos, Crawford Porter, and Canelo Plant, one of those three are going to score an upset. So I always gave him a chance, and I gave him a chance because I saw the way he was training the whole year. I follow George Kambosos Jr. on Instagram, and I just knew that I could see the progression during the year in his training. So,
and that's why it's important to watch like the pre shows they do to let you get a deeper look into the boxers' lives or their training. It's important because another reason why I say it's the biggest upset. If we could use one of those Men in Black pens and erase this fight from our memory, and I went back and I just I didn't know Teo and I didn't know Kambosos, and I studied Kambosos and then I studied Teo, I would still pick Teo. You know what I'm saying? It's not oh, it makes sense now. It's no, it looked like he's supposed to beat that guy still,
Yeah.
And in the rematch, I think I would see. He has the tools. I'll say that. In the rematch, I think I would favor him still, even though he's kind of stubbornly sticking by his corner, which I don't think is a good decision. But he's demonstrated he can carry out a game plan and use his jab and have the patience and all that. He just didn't do any of that in this fight. And
that's true.
You know, I don't want to take away from what Kambosos did. He earned it, like I said, but
yeah, he definitely did.
Teofimo left the door open and let Kambosos in.
So.
He looked the exact opposite of his previous fight. Like
exactly opposite.
He looked the exact opposite. Just totally aggressive. Just terrible on just not seeing the shots coming and just getting lined up. I mean, the guy just lined him up the whole fight. It was just like he's watching, he's inputting the data, and bam, counter, beautiful counter, another beautiful counter. And you can hear the commentators just constantly giving Kambosos praise about how good he's boxing the guy.
When he made
one thing I also have to say is the hook off the jab from Kambosos.
I love
amazing.
That. Yeah. Beautiful.
1-3. Beautiful.
Yeah, 1-3. And the other thing was, like I said, man, I mean, I agree with you. You should be ready to fight and defend your titles at all time, but this whole protecting and not going for the biggest fights, it's just irritating to me because I never got to see Joshua Wilder. And this happen again.
Well, this would have been a step up.
I think Tank's gonna do the same thing. I'm watching it, and as we talk about this, and as I think about what happened to T.O., and I'm watching these fights and I'm watching these upsets, Joshua Usyk, another upset, probably not as
listen,
surprising.
Listen.
Jason, that doesn't count the Usyk.
Jason,
hey, I'm just saying,
Jason,
man.
if we keep bringing up Anthony Joshua, Devin is going to leave the panel. Let's not. Adonis, we didn't get your opinion on this matter yet. Was this the biggest upset of the year?
Yeah, I had said it was the biggest upset of the year.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I got everybody's. I got everybody's take on that. My apologies. I'll give my 2 cents real quick. You know, not only do I think this is the biggest upset of the year, and we've had a few great upsets. We had Valdez knocking out Burchell. We had, I'm sorry, Devin. I'm gonna do it one more time. We had Usyk's upset victory. I won't say over who, just for Devin's sake. And then we also had Ugas dethroning Manny Pacquiao, who's a legend in the sport. And you know, that was a big victory that a lot of people didn't see coming.
Did you mention Usyk and Joshua? Did you mention that?
But Ugas's victory over Manny Pacquiao was another upset that a lot of people who don't pay close attention to boxing didn't see coming. This is not only the biggest upset of the year, it's probably a bigger upset than when Jeff Horn beat Manny Pacquiao in Australia, because this didn't happen on George Kambosos' home turf in Australia. This happened in New York City, where Teofimo Lopez is from and was a huge betting favorite. It's a huge upset. You know, I really, you know, and honestly, even though the odds were at plus 650, I really didn't think they should have been that wide. And I have to agree with what was previously said. I do think that Teofimo Lopez was rightfully favored, but he just didn't fight the right fight. But moving right along, we got to address this, even though we have in some ways. Where does Lopez go from now, and how does he get his career back on track? The biggest problem for Teofimo Lopez is the fact that when he entered the arena, all the fans cheered for him. But while he was leaving, all the fans booed him. And that's a huge problem for him. So, Breezy, what does he do to remedy that?
You know, initially after the fight, I was thinking he's in a really bad position, but this is the lightweight division. It could be the deepest division in boxing right now at the moment. There's a lot of options he had, but right after the fight, he basically said he's done with 35 and he's moving to 40. So if that's the case, he's in a real bad position. But I think he could still fight at 35. So a good move for him, in my opinion, if I was Teofimo Lopez, I would go after Ryan Garcia. He's an undefeated fighter. it's a very marketable fight. You know, people know him, and it's a fight that he can win. You know, and look good doing it. So that'll be a good rebound for him. Or, you know, it's been a lot of good fights in the past week or two. I think Jojo Diaz gave a great account of himself. That fight's worth watching. Also,
that was a great fight.
As Jason mentioned, that Loma's still out there. That's still an interesting fight. Yeah. And there's also Isaac Cruz. He fought an excellent fight.
Performance.
Yeah, he fought an excellent fight. And those are all still options, and they're good fights. So he can do that. But as far as you know, we talk about the top 4. I like to say 5 at lightweight. They're hot topics. And they've been hot topics. I think he should forget about those guys at least for his next fight. That's what I would do. I would go for Ryan, Jojo, Cruz, Loma, and then from there.
Well, you know, truthfully, I think Loma may be in a position where he's going to go for Teofimo Lopez next. Adonis, what do you think? What do you think Teofimo Lopez does to get his career back on the right track?
You know, I know everybody is kind of hating on his chances about going up to 140, but they seem pretty set on the fact that he's going to be going up to 140. He said it afterwards. His dad said it afterwards. So I think that'll probably be the next move for him. And to be honest with you, there's some advantages he could take up there for himself, at least. You know, we've seen him kind of drop off in the later rounds in these last 2 fights. Even in the fight he won against, Lomachenko, he kind of dropped off towards the end there. And he cuts a lot of weight, man. You got to think that's got to be wearing on your gas tank just a little bit at some point. You go up, you have the speed advantage. I think his power wouldn't translate all that bad up to 140, you know. I don't think he should be going up there and shooting a shot against, like a Regis Prograis, a Josh Taylor, somebody like that. But there's guys he can fight. Baranchik, Postal, Barrios. They're all fights he can get his feet wet in the division. He's 24, man. It's time to go into the division.
Yeah, true. That's true. Devin, what about you? What is Lopez doing to get his career back on the right track?
First of all, who cares about whoever he fights next? We need to talk about him improving his support. Jason made a good point earlier that he said he could see Tank doing the same thing, fighting somebody and losing. I disagree because if you look at the support system that Tank has, these are all boxing purists. You got Floyd. You got both of his coaches. Oh my God! They both my name. The brother from DC and then his other coaches from Baltimore. Barry. So
and Calvin Ford.
He has to somehow locate and enhance his support system and move forward from there. Whether it be changing the role of his father to being a consultant or an assistant trainer. Whatever it is, it's just like Floyd said, and it's just like Custom Model said in one of his books. Sometimes your amateur trainer doesn't make a great pro trainer. That's just the way
that's the hard truth.
Yeah, that's the hard hitting truth. Facts.
But if he wants to move up to 140, all those guys watch that fight, and they're ready. I mean, Josh Taylor was having the ball on Twitter, and
yeah,
I mean, come on. Like, is that what
I saw that?
Fight Ryan Garcia, do God's work, get him on out of here, and then move from there. And for Ryan Garcia, come on. You watch George Kambosos do that, and you said he said that he was going to be your next opponent. Come on, fam. He'll walk through you. He's gonna put you down. Give me a break.
Yeah, well, I can't I can't fault you for having that opinion, especially after the year that Ryan Garcia had. He had a great breakthrough over Luke Campbell in January, and then ever since then been MIA. So it's kind of a big ask for him to demand a fight with George Kambosos Jr. It just is. Personally, what I think Lopez should do to get his career back on the right track is just what Devin said. You got to take your father and remove him from the role of head trainer. Your dad will always be your dad. He doesn't have to always be your trainer. And it's business, it's not personal. I think that's the best thing he can do to really get his career on track. Aside from that, if you look at the fight, there were moments in the corner where you could see damage accumulating on his face.
Yeah.
Especially after one of the rounds where Kambosos ended the round by landing a couple of good left hooks. And then when he sat in the corner, you see the welts start to swell on Lopez's right eye. And it took him like 30 seconds to apply the head swell. Aside from taking his father and stripping him of his head trainer duties, I think he's got to find, a stronger corner too. One of the problems that went wrong for Lopez that night is the fact that they didn't manage the damage that was being done by George Kambosos Jr. And if they would have done that, maybe he would have been able to eke out the victory in the later round. But because that damage took a toll on him, and again, credit to George Kambosos, credit to George Kambosos for inflicting that damage. He did a great job doing it. But again, if Teofimo Lopez's corner could have done a better job in the corner, it could have changed the outcome of the fight. So I think he should get some new blood in his corner. No pun intended, Mr. Lopez, or Lopez Sr., Pops, whatever you want to call him. No pun intended, but definitely get some new blood in the corner. And also, I don't think it's a bad idea to stick with Matchroom. I don't know why he left Top Rank to do this particular fight. And obviously, it didn't work out with Triller. Matchroom took this fight. They put it on immediately. There were no problems. And it was a great fight. Unfortunately, Lopez just wasn't on the winning end of it. But it was a great fight, and it was a great event. I think he can stick with Matchroom. If he wants to do it on a one-fight basis, fine. But Matchroom has a lot of great lightweights. And I think Ryan Garcia probably is one of his best options because Ryan Garcia has a huge fan base. And Ryan Garcia has a lot to prove, and Teofimo Lopez has a lot to prove now after taking his first loss. So I think that is probably his best bet for his next opponent. Unless he wants to rematch with George Kambosos Jr., which brings me to my next question. And Jason, if you would, go ahead and bring those graphics back up. What's next for George Kambosos Jr.? Is it Ryan Garcia? Is it Devin Haney? Is it Tank? Is it Lomachenko? Is it Isaac Cruz? What do you think?
What's next for Kambosos?
Yeah.
What I would like to see, and I think most people would like to see, would be an undisputed fight, a real undisputed for lightweight in the match against Devin Haney, because he has the only other belt in the in the division. Haney was there. Kambosos said he was willing. Haney won his fight after that. All the stars lined up. They both fought within a week of each other. So, it shouldn't be too difficult to do that. But he still has options. He can face Tank if he wants to. He may be able to grant Teofimo a rematch, but I don't know if that happens. But I would really be disappointed if he faced Ryan Garcia. that would disappoint me.
Big facts.
Yeah. But I would love to see him face Devin Haney next.
I would too. And you know what? I'm not going to have you answer this question. I'm going to go ahead and let Devin answer. Why shouldn't George Kambosos Jr. face Ryan Garcia?
Because George is a champion, and he should fight another champion. Not an Instagram champion. A boxing champion. I mean,
The hot take express question, ladies and gentlemen.
I feel like this is really simple. I don't know why we give this young man attention. Yes, he's talented. Yes, he can fight a little bit. What has he done? Come on, dog. Like, he's just like Teo, just sitting out. Come on, fam. We really got to stop talking about him, fam. Like, we really have to stop doing this. He does not belong in this conversation. Fight Devin Haney. Fight. What's the brother's name? Tank. Fight Lomachenko if he wins against Comey. Give Teofimo a rematch once he get everybody back together. Ryan Garcia.
Or fight JoJo Diaz. He was supposed to fight JoJo Diaz and he pulled out. He was supposed to fight. I'm sorry, no, he was supposed to fight Fortuna and he pulled out, right? Or was he also supposed to fight JoJo Diaz as well?
Probably.
Yeah, both of them he was supposed to.
Okay, so he pulled out of the Fortuna fight. Diaz stepped in to fight Fortuna. Is that right?
The only thing he's fighting is the chest protector on Logan Paul's chest and on his Come on, dog.
Adonis. What do you think? What's next for George Kambosos Jr.? Should there be a rematch between Kambosos and Lopez, or not? What do you think?
There's a certain kind of incentive, I guess, he has to fight Devin Haney. I get it that the Tank, fight. It's a big fight. It's really enticing, especially money wise. But if he fights Devin Haney for undisputed and he can win that fight, there's a certain kind of historical value that you have in that, because there's guys like, hey, Devin, I'm sorry, I'm going to say this, like Andy Ruiz once he beat Joshua. Hey, to be honest with you, Andy Ruiz is a great fighter. He's a great heavyweight, but him losing that very next fight in the Anthony Joshua fight and then not being able to go to an undisputed status or fight other champions, somebody who held a real belt, he's not going to be remembered historically for heavyweights. If George Kambosos could become undisputed at lightweight right now, when it's the hottest, deepest it's been in a long in my lifetime, that would put him on another status that we could have never, even like a week ago. If we were talking about George Kambosos being one of the greatest lightweights of all time, I mean, come on, man. Everybody here, I think, would have laughed at you. But he's got the opportunity to do that. But the only way he does that is if he fights Devin Haney and beats him. So I wouldn't risk going out there because, hey, Tank Davis, that's a hard fight, man. And losing to Tank Davis and then not getting to get that opportunity to become undisputed, I think would be worse than losing to Devin Haney trying to go for all the marbles. So I think Devin Haney definitely should be next.
That's a good point, and I have to agree with you. I think the next thing for George Kambosos Jr. is the Haney fight. I think that would be the best option because whoever wins that fight would be undisputed. Whatever happens next, I like the idea of George Kambosos having his title defense in Australia. Like I said earlier, Australians love boxing. They don't get their time in the spotlight very often, and this is a great moment for Australian boxing fans and the Australian boxing community. So credit to George Kambosos for doing that, saying that he wants that title defense or his next fight to be in Australia because he's been a road warrior for so long, and he deserves it, to be honest with you.
He really shook up the division. I tell you that, man.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. At the end of the day, November 27th, a star was born. It was a phenomenal performance from George Kambosos. And again, we've talked about what went wrong for Lopez, and at the end of the day, Teofimo Lopez is a great fighter. He just didn't have a good night. And part of the reason he didn't have a good night is because he was in there with George Kambosos, and George Kambosos brought it. Lesson learned for anybody out there who's looking to get into boxing. When you are a champion, or when you are, the alpha in a division, or, a number one fighter, someone who's highly ranked, everybody beneath you wants what you got. So you got to be ready at all times. Just like Devin said earlier, boxing is a game where you have to stay ready so you don't have to get ready. All those people. When you go to BoxRec and you look at rankings, if you look at, for example, let's say Canelo at super middleweight, he's ranked number 1, and it says one out of like 800. All those 799 people underneath Canelo want what he has. You have to be ready. And, unfortunately, Teofimo Lopez was not ready in his own hometown of New York City. But the great news is he's a good enough fighter where he can turn it around. I personally, for Lopez, I don't think he should go up to 140, even though I think he could and he would be successful there. Just because the notion would be, you just took a thrashing at 135, and now you're leaving the division. I don't think a lot of fans would really like that. So I'd like to see Lopez stick around at 135, try to earn a rematch back if he's not going to try to pursue a rematch. I think it's pretty interesting that for Lopez to be the type of champion that he was, he had, virtually all the belts except for the one that Devin Haney has, the WBC regular world championship. He's got the franchise championship instead. He earned that from beating Lomachenko. He had all the belts, and nobody's talking about a rematch. And I don't know what kind of rematch clause there was in the contract, but it's very atypical when you have a champion of that stature, and he's not talking about his rematch clause, and none of the fight fans are either. So again, Lopez's biggest problem right now is the fact that he was cheered on the way in and booed on the way out. But again, I think he can do a lot to remedy that. George Kambosos, sky's the limit for that guy. Again, the star was born that night. Boxed beautifully, showed what he can do, and he can do a lot. Let's go ahead and close the show. I think we said it all. So let's go ahead and get some closing remarks. I'll go to Devin first, the hot take specialist. Do you have one more hot take for us before we get out of here? No pressure.
We have to give these guys credit when they deserve it.
Absolutely.
George Kambosos can box. That wasn't a fluke performance in New York. That wasn't some once in a lifetime only happen when the moon is full type performance. He came there, he showed up, he traveled from thousands of miles away, and he shook up the world. He is not a bum. He can fight. Give him credit and give him his flowers right now. There's too often times we do this where I mentioned it earlier in the show. Too often times we talk about the loser of a big upset rather than the guy who won or the woman who won. And I think it's really important for us to make sure that we give these fighters their credit. Hopefully that Teo comes back, regardless of how I feel about his relationship with his father. Hopefully he comes back because he is an entertaining fighter, and I hope Ryan Garcia shuts up.
I knew we had one more hot take. All right, Adonis, closing remarks.
Fights like this weekend, they might not be the most anticipated fights, but realistically, as a championship level boxer, this is what you make a career out of, man. How many truly amazingly big fights do you get in your career? A few, and everything in between. Yeah. Honestly, sometimes that's the hardest part, man, because you got to get up for it, you got to put in the work, and you got to show up every single time. And that's why you want to watch these fights, because realistically, when we look at Teofimo Lopez's career, sure, we might have looked back at all the amazing champion versus champion fights that he would have had. But this fight against the guy that was a plus 650 underdog will now always be in the record books as something where he came up short. And, if you lose against a great champion, that's one thing. But when you got to fight all these guys in between, those major megastar fights, you got to start putting in the work. And that's how you accumulate a great legacy. And sometimes those guys, they show up on the right night and they take it all from you. And that's what happened on November, what was it, 22nd?
27th.
27th.
Yes, sir. Well said, Adonis. Breezy.
Yes, sir.
Closing remarks. What do you think?
Hey, you ever talk to like somebody about boxing, and you could tell how much into boxing they are? Like, you can really talk, or you got to keep it just based on, or you got to talk Canelo or Mayweather, just the big stars,
Absolutely.
So I was talking to this guy because he fits in that category, and it made me think. He's like, a lot of the boxers, they always say the same thing. Oh, I'm not overlooking any opponent. Anything could happen. One punch could change the fight. It's fights like this. That's why we say it. It's like, it's rare. It doesn't happen. Like most of us were just dead wrong on this one, but that's what also makes it good. You don't be right every time, and that's kind of boring. This shook up the world. It shook up the division. It changed some people's perspective on boxing. You know what I'm saying? But
rightfully so.
This was the type of fight that this is why we happen, and it's good. But I want you guys to think about something. I don't know if you could have ever said this before, especially in a deep division like this. In the past, all of the top 10 lightweights in the world right now fought another top 10 lightweight in the past 2 weeks, or is going to fight one next week. They've all faced a top 10 guy. Everybody's been saying they've been ducking each other, this and that. They're all still young, and they all just faced a top 10 guy. What's next for all of them is each other. It's about to get real in 22, and I'm excited. So that's what I'm going to
Very, very good point. Very good point. Last but not least.
Can I just say one more thing? I'm so sorry.
Absolutely.
Can we just take a moment to give my baby is asleep. So can we just give like a golf clap to the New York State Athletic Commission judges for actually doing their job? Because I know I'm not the only one here. When them scorecards were about to be read, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Bob,
well, you know what?
Again.
I would give them the soft clap that you were requesting, but go back and look at the scorecards. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, go back and look at the scorecards. 2 of those judges gave Teofimo Lopez the 12th round.
Yeah.
The round where he was getting battered, and you could check the punch stats. There is absolutely no reason or evidence why you could give Teofimo Lopez
I don't know
the 12th round.
If that was the judges or if it was somebody else.
It was the judges.
First name with a B, last name start with an A.
He's got nothing to do with this. This was Metro.
I know.
He's got nothing.
Never think that he has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, you're right.
He probably might be in this show right now. We don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There was something in it for him.
Bob is from New York, if I'm not mistaken. So
I think so. Yeah.
There is absolutely no reason why those judges should have gave those 2 judges that did it. And I'm not gonna try to name any names. I don't want to name any names. And I couldn't name any names if I wanted to because I don't remember it. But those 2 judges that did that, no applause for you. There were also, I want to say those were the same 2 judges that gave Kambosos the first round 10-9, or one of them gave Kambosos the first round 10-9 as opposed to 10-8.
Yeah, I guess
it's
saying that it was so competitive.
What?
That he still only won by a point. Yeah, what a scam.
That's malarkey.
Honestly, again, Lopez was winning that round undoubtedly until he got dropped. And that's professional boxing. It's the hurt business. It's not amateur boxing where it's some sort of point system. You get dropped. That's it. You lost that round. 12th round, Teofimo Lopez was bleeding all over the ring. There's no way he could have won that round. Even just the optics on it. And then just the optics alone. But aside from the optics, you can go back and check the punch stats. There's no way he could have won that round. 0. And one thing I'm gonna say before I turn it over to Jason for his closing remarks. Another thing you guys could do while I'm talking about the punch stats, and if we really want to give George Kambosos his flowers, look at the power punch statistics round by round. It was job well done to George Kambosos. Mm-hmm. The proof is in the pudding when you look at those power punching stats from November 27th when he fought Teofimo Lopez. Awesome display of power punches. Most of them were counters, and he did a great job, and that's why he won that fight. Jason, thank you again for producing another fantastic episode for us. What do you have to tell the people before you get out of here?
As a final thought, I'm just gonna say that first of all, my feelings are hurt because I wasn't asked who would I like to see Lopez fight next or Kambosos fight next. So my
Well, that's
final
why you had the
thought.
final remarks. So let us know. Let us know. Let us know.
So I'm just gonna double down basically on what I've been saying. Stop giving us the fights we don't want to see. And if you're a fighter and you're watching this, do your damnedest, work as hard as you can to give us the fights we want to see. Because when you lose those fights, then it's not so hard of a climb back up. If you would have lost to Devin Haney, or even a rematch with Lomachenko, or God bless a match with Tank Davis, somebody that is respected in your division. Whereas we can't say that Kambosos is not respecting your division, but we did not want to see that plus 650. Plus 6. We didn't, nobody wanted that fight. We looked past them, you looked past them, and now look what happened. Stop letting this happen. Give us the fights we want to see. So then at least
I gotta be honest with you, Jason. You ready for this? Me and Breezy were actually pretty excited for this fight. I remember Breezy was one of the first ones to say, "Man, Kambosos is a dangerous opponent."
He's respected.
Congratulations.
Undefeated still.
And rightfully
still.
So. And rightfully so. And rightfully so. You put your title defenses on the line, and look what happened. You looked past an opponent, chalked it up. You thought you were going to go in the first round, all aggressive, be the big bully, and you got your basketball took from you. And he made you get off the court. Now we don't know when you can get back on the championship court. I mean, what do we honestly? Who do I want to see Lopez fight? And this is how I'll close it out. Who do I want to see Lopez fight? Any contender that will get him back to a championship fight. If that's Lopez or an actual championship, I mean not Lopez. If that's Lomachenko or actual champion, that would be nice for Lopez. But who knows? The way boxing is going now,
yeah.
Who wants to fight Lopez? Who wants? They're all protecting their own. Why would you fight somebody that dangerous with no belts, no upside, who already took a loss? You know, besides the money, maybe if the money side is that high, but I don't think it will be. So for Lopez, he needs to just climb and fight whoever he can to get him back at a championship status, because it's going to be hard. He is definitely still a tough opponent. Nobody wants to see Lopez on a good day. So it's going to be hard for him to get those type of championship fights. They're all looking for the big paydays or to unify them belts. So it's tough for Lopez. But moving right along to Kambosos, who do I want to see him fight? It's no doubt, no question who he should fight. It's Haney. He's at the press conference. Yeah. He went from none of us talking about him at all to being ringside, watching Haney come down after he defends his title and talking about doing and you know, in his words, now we can talk. Kambosos has put himself in a position to now say, now we can talk. And that's what I got to say. Stop letting these guys take the fight that you can, the best fight you can get now. If you can, if your promotion team, don't lay around like Crawford did with Arum and not get promoted. I mean, not get promoted properly.
Shout out Eddie
belts are on the line. Your belts are on the line, man. If you get in the ring with a guy that thirsty like Kambosos, man, this is what can happen to you. That guy put it, you could tell when he got in the ring, he put everything, his mother, his father, he put everybody on his back. Australia, and salute to him.
I didn't really look at his tattoos, but you may be correct in a literal sense. They may actually be tattooed on his back. He's got a lot of artwork on him. You know, honestly, with what you just said, you know, when you have that many belts, you got your mandatories, and George Kambosos Jr. was his mandatory. Yeah, I understand what you're saying though, because when it comes down to it, fight fans can be very unforgiving. And when you lose to somebody who was as overlooked as George Kambosos Jr. was, because I don't think he's going to be overlooked anymore. But when you lose to somebody who was as overlooked as George Kambosos Jr. was, it is a very hard climb back to the top. just
Now we
because
can-
fight fans can be so unforgiving. And it's not exactly fair, but that's the way it works sometimes.
Now we can
Jason,
talk.
thank you again for producing a fantastic episode for us. Ladies and
Now we can
gentlemen, if you're
talk.
listening, go ahead and follow Podcast or Die Trying on YouTube as well. He's got great content, tons of uploads, very entertaining. A great variety show. So check him out. My name is HB, alongside my brother Breezy. Thank you, Adonis, for joining us. Thank you, Devin, the Hot Take Special, for joining us. Thank you again, Jason, for producing this episode. We're signing off. Again, this is the hard-hitting truth. This is what happens when a couple of boxers get together, talk about the game we love. Until next time, protect yourself at all times and roll with the punches. Breezy, we're having a peace.
Peace. There it is.
There it is. 2 fingers, y'all.